Hey everyone, and welcome. We're diving into a question that sounds simple on the surface, but is actually, well, incredibly complex. What really makes someone an Indian citizen? The answer is twisted and turned over the decades, and it tells a pretty fascinating story about India itself. So, let's get into it. So let's just start right there. What actually makes somebody an Indian citizen? The first thing that probably pops into your head is, well, if you're born in India, you're a citizen. Right? Well, not exactly. It's actually a lot more complicated than that, and the rules have changed in some really big ways over the years. To figure this all out, you gotta know where to look for the rules. Now, the Constitution of India did define citizenship, but here's the catch. It only did it for a single day, January 26th, 1950. For literally everyone after that moment, the law that really matters, the main rulebook, is the Citizenship Act of 1955, and that's what we're going to unpack today. So, the Act basically lays out five different ways, five distinct paths that a person can become an Indian citizen. And to make sense of it all, we're going to use a really simple framework. Yup, five. That's the magic number here. Five separate ways to become a citizen under the law. And to keep them all straight, we're going to use this handy little acronym, BDIRN. It sounds kind of funny, but trust me, this is the key to unlocking the whole structure of the law. And here's what it all stands for. B is for birth, D is for descent, R is registration, I is incorporation of territory, and N is for naturalization. This is our roadmap for the next few minutes. Okay, let's dive into the two big ones first. The ones people think of most often, citizenship by being born in the country and citizenship through your parents, or, by your bloodline. All right, so citizenship by birth. At first, the rule was super simple. If you were born in India, boom, you were a citizen. It didn't matter who your parents were. But then, in 1987, things changed. Concerns about immigration led to a new rule. You had to be born in India and have at least one parent who is an Indian citizen. Fast forward to 2003, and the law got even stricter. Now, you need both parents to be Indian, or one parent is Indian and the other is not considered an illegal immigrant. Okay. So what exactly does illegal immigrant mean in this context? This is really important. The 2003 change put a formal definition right into the law. It's basically a foreigner who comes into India without the right papers, like a passport, or someone who stays longer than they're allowed to. This term became a huge factor in deciding who gets citizenship by birth. Now, what if you were born outside of India to Indian parents? Well, that path, citizenship by descent, got stricter too. Originally, it was all about the father. If your dad was an Indian citizen, you were too. Then, in 1992, something really important happened. The law became gender neutral. Now, either your mom or your dad could pass on citizenship. But then, after 2004, they added another step. You also had to register the child's birth at an Indian consulate within a year. All right, we've covered birth and descent. Now let's get into the other three paths. These are less about where you were born and more about going through a formal process to apply for citizenship. But before we can tackle the next one, we need to get this term down, Person of Indian Origin, or PIO. Think of this as a category for people who have family roots in India. Maybe their parents or grandparents were born in what was undivided India. It's a key concept for understanding what comes next. And this is where that PIO definition comes into play. You've got two major paths here, registration and naturalization. Registration is basically a faster track for people who already have a connection to India, like PIOs or people married to Indian citizens. Naturalization is the path for other foreigners, and as you can see, it has a much longer residency requirement, 12 years. So if you're going the naturalization route, there are a few hoops you have to jump through. You have to give up your old citizenship, live in India for that 12-year period, be of good character, have a decent knowledge of an official Indian language, and, this is a big one, you have to actually intend to live in India for good. But check this out. There's a really fascinating exception to all those rules. The government can basically wipe the slate clean and waive all of those conditions for someone who has done distinguished service in fields like science, art, philosophy, or even world peace. It's kind of like a special fast track for truly exceptional people. And that brings us to our fifth and final path. This one's pretty straightforward, actually. It's what happens when a new piece of land becomes part of India. A great example is Pondicherry. When it officially joined India, the government just issued an order saying, okay, these people living here are now Indian citizens. Simple as that. So, as we start to wrap this up, if there's one big thing to take away, it's this. Citizenship law is not some ancient text carved in stone, it's a living, breathing thing that changes and adapts over time. And we've seen that in action, right? You look at the big amendments in 1986, 1992, and 2003. These weren't just tiny little tweaks. Each one of them fundamentally changed the answer to that core question: who is an Indian? So, what should you really remember from all this? Four things. One, the Citizenship Act of 1955 is the rulebook for today. Two, remember our acronym, BDRIN, the five paths: birth, descent, registration, incorporation, and naturalization. Three, the most common ways to become a citizen, by birth and descent, have gotten way stricter over the years. And finally, the big idea. This is a dynamic law that's always evolving. And that leaves us with one last thing to think about. We've seen how the law has changed. But that brings up a much bigger, much deeper question. As a country changes and evolves, how should its very definition of who belongs, of who gets to be a citizen, evolve along with it? It's a question every single nation has to grapple with, and there are definitely no easy answers. Thanks for joining me.